Hello, in this video I'm going to go over the construction of the fish house using photos I took during construction. I'm going to talk over each photo one at a time and describe exactly how I completed each stage of the build. If you want to see the finished fish house, please check the previous video. Please like and subscribe, and hope you enjoy the video. At this point in the build, I'd just finished bricking up the garage door. The first thing I did was lay one layer of thermalite blocks all the way around the edge of the garage. This was to stop the 4-inch exotherm resting directly on the floor. This one's a little blurry, but this is what it looked like directly after attaching the 4-inch exotherm on all the walls around the edge and in between the joists in the roof. The pipe in the bottom left corner is going out to the drains that was directly at the back, so when I can do all my water changes and the sink in the corner, that's where all the water goes. The cable on the left hand side is the armour cable we brought in for the consumer unit, so everything could be directly wired in and properly fused. This one's slightly messy with all the tools in here, but this was basically when we'd applied the 15mm marine grade ply to all the walls and 4mm ply to the roof. At this point we'd started to build the actual table for the aquariums. The vertical posts are 4x4 posts, and there were 6 of them front to back against 5 instances along the whole length of the garage, totaling 30 4x4 posts to distribute the weight, plus the ones in between each sump, so you was talking somewhere between 35 and 40 4x4 posts taking the weight. The ones running the length of the garage are 7x2 posts. They run the full length of the garage and are screwed to each leg along that run of the garage. Because the legs were split into 5 intervals, it made 4 even sumps underneath the main tanks, which was roughly about 4 by 3.5 feet. This video shows another angle of the construction at roughly the same stage. The wall that split the 2 tanks was basically a plywood wall, as you can see in the picture. The post at the back was a 4x4 post that run the full height of from the floor to the ceiling, and the front post, to take the extra weight of the water pushing in 2 directions, was a 6x6 post that was screwed to the floor and the roof. This is what the sumps looked like after I'd applied the plywood to them. Underneath the bottom one there was a 2x2 frame with 2-inch exotherm insulation to insulate between the concrete underneath and the actual bottom of the sump. Again, in this one you can see me applying the insulation and plywood to the sumps. Similar to the bottom of the sumps, the walkway down the side I also built a 2x2 lattice work and filled that with 2-inch exotherm as well, and then plied the marine grade ply again to make the floor. At this point, as I don't know how to use fiberglass, I got someone else in to come in and do the fiberglassing of the sumps for me, as we couldn't build the top table until the bottom tanks had been fiberglassed. This is after the first coat was applied before the resin on top. This is what the sumps looked like once they was finished. He actually applied 2 coats in the end, the original fiberglass, then he put a tissue layer on top to give a smoother finish, and then finally finished off with the top layer of resin that went on top. I was really happy with the end result with these. They looked a real professional job. After the bottoms had finally been completed, I built the top frame to support the weight of the top tanks. Again, similar like you would a decking in your garden. At this point the fronts of the sumps had been applied, and we was ready to apply the base to the framework. In this image I'd applied the plywood on top of the framework and was just getting the last few pieces ready to fiberglass the top tanks. This is another view of the top tanks after the board had been applied and the front faces had started to be built. You can also see in this tank in the back corner I'd also started to apply the laminate beading in the corners so that the fiberglass didn't meet at a 90 degree and that it was more of a smooth curve for the person to fiberglass around. In this picture, again it's slightly blurry, I'd applied the front frame. Basically the top piece of 4x1 doesn't take any weight of the water because the glass being 19mm thick, the whole weight was taken by the glass. The top piece was simply a piece of wood for me to attach the doors onto. There wasn't load bearing at all. At this point, he'd fiberglassed the top 2 tanks. They was exactly the same as the bottom 4. The first coat was the normal fiberglass, then it was the tissue layer, and then the top layer of resin on top. Again, this was a bit messy again, but at this point I'd put the vinyl flooring down just to help with any water spillages. And as I knew it was going to be hot and humid in here, I basically lined everything with, I think it was 3 or 4 mil foam board. I use this basically because in case it, again, splashing or water spillages or even maybe slightly condensation, the walls would easily wipe down. With it being wood, I know rot was going to be a real issue in the long term, so I tried to do really Beltham's braces with it and tried to really protect it the best I could. Luckily, I've never had any issues with any of it. The humidifier does have to run in there, but it keeps it lovely and dry, and I've never had any problems with it in the long run. It also makes it look slightly better than the bare wood does, I believe, as well. Again, this one's a bit blurry, I'm afraid, but basically this was when I'd fitted the heating system. Basically, the copper parts go back to the boiler in the corner, and the 2 large silver items are heat exchangers. I hadn't plumbed the pumps in at this point, but the actual copper plumbing had all been finished. This was after we applied the first pieces of glass for the sumps. I believe the bottom glass was, I think it was either 12mm or 15mm. The hole in the top left corner was basically an overflow because of the top tanks being so large. If the top tanks ever turned off for whatever reason, a pump failure, there was a large amount of water drained from the top tanks. I didn't want to have to run the sumps at only half full because I didn't want to lose that much water or volume to the capacity of the tanks. So I put an overflow system on it, so if the pump ever did go out, the overflow running water would run down and straight out the overflow, wouldn't flood the garage, and it had also increased by doing it like that instead of running the sumps half full. Also increased the water volume by at least 500-600 litres probably per tank, so it was well worth doing. Finally, after the top glass had been fitted, this is the day I'd been waiting for a very long time, where we finally filled them for the first time. This took a lot longer than it should have done, but I had to do this because of the drains at the back, alongside doing the ponding as well, because I couldn't do the I couldn't do the garage without having the pond done, and vice versa. And the pond took a long time because I basically had to move 70 tonne of clay, digging the pond 6 feet down, by hand with a shovel, a bucket, and a wheelbarrow. So the whole thing took me a long time, but it was well worth it at the end because I believe I've got a really good pond now and I'm very happy with my fish house. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that, and hopefully it gave some of you an idea of how to maybe progress with future projects, or give you ideas on how you might want to do another project. I certainly do things differently if I were to do it again, but for the first time round, I'm happy with how that went, really. Please leave comments, good or bad. Tell me what you think. That'd be really useful. If you'd be kind enough to share, like, and subscribe, that'd be brilliant too. Thank you very much.